So that leads me to think a little bit more about the coaching world from your perspective. And ultimately, I want to figure out why golfers are not improving. Like, what are the sort of two? I want to go almost down a list. Like, if you had to think about three key things that amateur golfers do that prevents them from improving. And I guess I'm trying to relate this a little bit more to their behaviors and approach to learning the game rather than actual, skill in terms of, yeah, they got to hit more of a draw or come more from the inside. Like, not quite like that. I'm talking about attributes that make them a great student, that a coach like yourself makes them really coachable, and they can apply those lessons in a way that sees long-term performance benefits. Like, what do you see as those top three things that a student could do to really take advantage of working with a pro like yourself?
Well, we'll dive into some kind of swing stuff, some kind of mechanics, if you like. But I think before that, if you're going to see a coach, whether it be an online coach, whether it be a coach in person, you've got to sort of go in there with the right mindset. A good coach will tell you what you need to hear, and they will be diligent in that. And what I mean by that is, if I went to the gym and I went and saw a PT and I literally said, like, I want bigger leg muscles, that PT is going to run me through 3, 4, 5 exercises that can help me grow my leg muscles. And if I go back a week later, what's he going to do? Same things. He's going to give me the same exercises, because that's what I've got to keep doing. And I think my experience is, as a coach, a younger coach, if you get someone who's coming regularly for lessons, where it's every few weeks, every month, every week maybe, it's easy to start to give them something different every time. Now we're going to work on this. Now we're going to change this. Now we're going to change this. And I think there's a little bit of kind of an acceptance that that's how golf lessons are. So the first thing would be accept that you're basically going to go to see a coach. He's going to, or she's going to outline what you need to do in order to get better. And that's what you're going to work on for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years. And there might be slightly different drills. There might be slightly different ways of practicing, but for the majority of golfers that I see, they've got 1 to 2 faults, and if they could fix those, they'd play better. And once you've got those clear, you just work on those. And it may well be that one of your lessons, nothing's different to what you did on a previous lesson, but the coach is there to make sure you're doing the drills correct and make sure your form is good and make sure you're hitting the right positions. But it's not going to be a lesson 1 is grip, lesson 2 is backswing, lesson 3 is downswing, lesson 4 is follow through, lesson 5 is playing, lesson 6 is that. It doesn't work like that. There's too much to take on. So first would be accept that you're going to be working on 1 to 2 things, and you've got to be good at working on those things. I think number 2 would be, you've got to be practicing correctly. Not enough golfers know how to practice. Not enough golfers practice with feedback. Not enough golfers are doing what I call deep practice, which is when there's a real intent with what you're doing. There's a difference between going to the range and hitting balls and practice.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to go and hit balls, go and do that. And you might get a little bit better because you may be developing skill, but if you want to change your goal swing, you've got to be doing deep practice. So I just think that those are the 2 things in terms of from a student's perspective and mentality. And then when you look at kind of in swing, the biggest thing that I would see is that golfers, as a general rule, aren't particularly good at getting the club face back to point where it needs to point, which is obviously kind of target or close to target. And just to expand on that a little bit more, this is a, well, it's a controversial topic, but it's something that maybe is a bit new to people, or they've not already heard it. And I think the terminology is maybe partly as a cause for this. But if you get a golfer at the top of the golf swing, and we look at that kind of classic top of the golf swing, a kind of Tiger Woods and Adam Scott, when we look at that club face position, we would look at that and go, that's perfect, that's neutral. But that golf club is effectively 90 degrees open, and it's rotated 90 degrees open in the backswing. And the easiest way for someone can kind of figure this out is if you take a golf club and just hold it with your normal grip and just stand up dead straight, so you're not in any posture, your arms out in front of you, that leading edge is going to be vertical. It's going to be at 90 degrees straight up and down. And if you start to just rotate your chest away from the target, that club face will stay vertical. That club face is square to the arc, it's square to the path. You could then rotate your chest back and it'd return to the same place every time. But there's a limit to how far you can go when you do that. So if people try this, you're going to rotate and you're going to get stuck. So at some point, your arms have to fold. And when your arms fold, that club face, which is at 90 degrees, so straight up and down, is going to rotate through 90 degrees to the point where it's pretty horizontal with the ground. What that will do is it allow you to then swing your arms a bit more round and get a proper length of golf swing. That's what we see in every golfer. Every golfer does that. Yes, some do it less than others. Someone like a DJ will do it less. Someone like a Colin Morikawa will do it less, but they all do it. So that club face in the backswing is open by 90 degrees. That's a big issue because you've got to fix it. And the issue for majority of golfers is there are 4, 5, 6, 7 maybe different ways of squaring that club face. And the chances are that what the golfer does naturally isn't correct. So when the shaft steepens in the downswing, that's something that squares the face. When you release it early, that's something that squares the face. When you start to back up, swing left, that's something that starts to square the face. So these are all things that golfers are doing because the face is opened and they're trying to get it back to point at the target. So they look at these movements and they look at these swing traits, they look at these flaws and say they don't like it. And what they're ultimately doing is they're trying their best to get the club to point back at the target. What the great golfers do is understand the correct way to square that face. And when they do that, it allows them to get everything that we see these best players in the world get, this kind of shaft lean, the compression, all that kind of stuff. So for me, one of the biggest faults is just the inability to square the face in the correct way.